talk about elk hunting here this morning. A great amount of my elk hunting, very much from the very start of my first day hunting elk. First year that I could ever hunt elk here in Wyoming. I've done a lot of walking, and in almost all those years, I almost always wore a pair of LL Bean Maine hunting boots. The very most comfortable boot that I've ever had, and with a good inner sole and a couple of heavy wool socks. Pad your feet, take care of your feet. You don't have to break these boots in. It's not a matter of breaking the boots in like a lot of these boots that we have. These are very, very comfortable. I always wore a 12 to 14 inch high boot, my pants tucked in, because I hunted in a lot of snow sometimes. And I took off of a morning on a walk hunting elk. This has been around 20 some odd years ago, all by myself. A day pack with a few provisions in there. And this was in a day when we still had some wonderful hunting before it's been destroyed by politics and money. And I walked in maybe around a mile, had around 15, 18 inches of snow on the ground. Eventually, as the early morning progressed, I ran across a couple of bull elk tracks, traveling together, moving. Basically, they were moving and migrating. And now this is in country that I was very familiar with. I wrangled horses out of that very country a lot of days in the summer and in the early fall. I knew the game patterns. I knew all the country. I knew how to approach it. I knew where I needed to go and what I needed to do. And I followed these elk tracks a ways, and they were headed right up a valley, right up the bottom of a valley. And on the right hand side of that valley, there was a point that kind of come out, and there was a saddle between there and the ridge that went up. And I headed right up to that saddle to a little higher ground so I could look down and look up the valley to see if I could see these elk if they hadn't traveled further than what I thought, because I thought I was awful close to them, and I was. And I got up into that saddle. I was very prepared. I just peeked up there first, and bingo, there's the bulls walking, just slowly walking up the valley. Well, I jerked my day pack off. I dropped it right down on the ground, right in the snow, and I laid right down prone so I could rest my rifle on my day pack. I was carrying a 300 Remington Ultra Mag rifle that I built, and I shot 180 grain Swift Scirocco bullets. And these elk were headed straight away from me. But the one elk was kind of meandered, kind of left to the right, and the other one was just traveling right, but just about right straight away from me. Well, I was just above them just a little bit, so this elk headed straight away. I had a perfect situation where I could line up on this elk, even though it was just walking very slowly. And I laid the crosshair centered right over that elk's, right over the center of its skull, but slightly ahead. because I intended on shooting that elk right in the back of the head. And that's exactly what I did. I shot that elk at about 275 yards with that 180 Swift Sirocco, and it came out about an inch off the center, right out its forehead. And he dropped like a rock and never quivered. Now, this is hunting. These are the kind of experiences that you experience when you're a hunter, and you know how to hunt, and you know what you need to do. Well, I gathered myself up, and I went to the elk, and I dressed it out, and I corded it up, because now I've got to pack it out. And I laid all the quarters hair down into the snow, the other side up, right in under a low hanging juniper tree, and I actually put a few limbs just over everything, because the first thing that finds these animals is a magpie, or maybe a raven, maybe a camp robber. Well, I knew that I was going to be on maybe a couple hours to be able to get my two buddies, my horse and my mule Festus and my horse Doc, and I could do anything I wanted to do pretty much with these two wonderful animals, virtually irreplaceable. And a bit later in the day, I got in there, and nothing had really bothered it, except for a hunter was in the area somewhere, and he actually turned all those quarters over. He turned them over in the snow, which is okay. Now the other side could be up, which is probably a smart move. I don't know, he probably might have been there within the hour after I'd killed the elk. But anyway, I packed them up, and brought them in, unpacked them put them in the box of the truck, and loaded Festus and Doc in the trailer and come home. Now this bull was probably right around a 300-inch 6-point bull, probably a 4 to 5 year old bull. It should be wonderful eating. And I've ate a lot of very, very wonderful bulls. I've had a couple of bulls they always taste good, but sometimes they're just a little bit on the tougher side, and you need to use a tenderizer, tenderize the steaks and whatnot. It helps an awful lot to be able to chew it much better. But anyway, that's just one of the many hundreds of experience that I've had, hunting elk. But this is what's enjoyable about it, is that is really true hunting.